Okay, well, Ray, this is a really special moment for us. We haven't seen you for a long time, but just before we start, let me just read off your incredibly impressive credentials so the rest of the UK knows exactly who you are. So, Ray Lamp, aka Dr BBQ, cookbook author, TV personality, restaurateur, and more recently, inductee into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. I mean, we're in the presence of royalty.
Woo! Welcome to the stage, Dr. Barbecue! Ray Lamp in the wise.
About longevity. If you hang around for your career started in 1982, before you girls were born, I'm sure.
I wish, Ray. Unfortunately, not. No.
You had to be close, though, son. I'm sure you weren't at that party I was at. In 1982, coming up in next September, it'll be 40 years that this has been my obsession. I tell everybody all the time, I started just like you. You know, I went to a barbecue event or I ran across a book or something and became obsessed with it, and it just changed your whole life. Absolutely the same story as everybody else, except I just started before you all.
And Ray, I believe you've been to Abergavenny Food Festival before.
No, I haven't. No.
I thought you were, because Grillstock was there one year, and I thought that you'd come along for the ride.
Now, where was that?
Abergavenny with John Finch. I was texting him this morning. Apparently, you have already been to Abergavenny Food Festival. Do you remember Abergavenny Castle and doing demos?
No.
You have been in the barbecue industry for too long now.
That's way too much wood smoke, Ray.
I spoke about it back in the early days, so I forget stuff these days. I don't think I was there. I think John's forgetting that one.
Yeah, probably.
So I think it's fair to say that your style of barbecuing over there in America has really had an impact on an emerging barbecue scene in Britain. How have you seen the British barbecue scene develop over the last decade?
Yeah, I can certainly speak to this because when I first came to Grillstock the first year, so what happened was Big Green Egg had just acquired a distributor in the UK. So think about that, you know, how well established they are now. This is a long time ago, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And they said, look around for an event. If and when there's I was their chef, and they said, you know, when there's a proper event, we'll go and we'll kick this off. So I ran across Grillstock and I said, it was the first year, and I said, let's go there. And we just figured, okay, what the heck? And actually we traded John and Ben for a big booth because they didn't have a bunch of sponsors the first year. And we went over there and it was great. We had a great time, met a bunch of people. The guy who was the distributor over there, and I think he still is, he wanted me to essentially go around England and retrain the butchers to cut American style. I didn't think that was
such a good point. Such a good point, Ray, because the cuts of meat associated with American barbecue, when we started our journey 9 years ago, it was so difficult to get something like a brisket with a point end on, for example.
Well, obviously retraining the butchers wasn't a good plan. I didn't think that was either. My attitude was to teach you guys how to cook the cuts that you already had, because it was the same hog. It was just cut a little different. And that's actually not what happened. What you guys, especially in the case of briskets, what ended up happening is you're importing all American beef at this point because it's just different. Those briskets we were getting in the early days at Grillstock, they were about this big. And it was like it reminded me of like a halibut or something. It was a big, like a flat.
that thin.
Yeah, they would roll them up. And I was like, what the heck is this? This is nothing very similar to what we can do. And so the briskets were clearly a problem. Actually, one of the things I did, I taught the first ever American barbecue class in the UK with John and Ben and Darren, who works for Nick now for the Fast Eddie guys. He had a Masonic hall somewhere, I don't even remember where, some little village, and we went there and we did this. So there's a company over here called I'll think of it in a minute, but one of the big beef companies, and I was working with them at the time, and I said, well, would you send over some briskets? I said, they had a distributor in Monaco of all things, and wow. I said, think if we show these people American brisket, they're all going to want to buy them. And so they agreed, and they sent over a brisket for everybody in the class, like 50 briskets, and they had to come. Oh, Creekstone Farms, that's the company. They deserve the credit. They get this all shipped from Monaco. They arrive at this hall. We get to this Masonic Lodge, and they've accidentally sent 50 eye of rounds, which are
no.
Monaco, and I'm sure they didn't really want them. And so I mean, it was just this evolution. So we went and scrambled and got some of them little skinny briskets, and we cooked them that day. But it was like, that's what ended up happening, though. I think it's Creekstone Farms. I believe you could find those now in the UK. Nobody ever gave me credit for that one, but it was what had to happen, certainly with briskets. Pigs is a different story. You could cut those a little different, or just cook the shoulder, whatever part of that shoulder you had. So that, I mean, that was a huge difference right there. Now it's completely normal. Everybody knows what those cuts are, and you can get them and cook them. So the internet has certainly helped us too, because over the last 10 years, it's just people just become obsessed with it. And there's so much info. I tell people all the time, quit looking at the internet though, and cook a brisket once in a while.
Well, of course, our big brisket inspiration was Aaron Franklin when we went to Franklin's in Austin. Have you met Aaron?
Yeah, I met Aaron. Aaron's a different kind of dude. I mean, he's all right. He doesn't hang like I could meet you guys tomorrow and we could hang.
You definitely hang. We've hung out with you, Ray. But I think, I mean, Aaron is amazing. He's great at what he does. But I mean, you've been such an inspiration, I think, to a lot of British barbecuers, because when we were in the States, a lot of American barbecues seem to be steeped in secrets. So not a lot of people wanted to tell you their spice rub or their ingredients. But I think you've really myth busted that here. And I think you may have given us Brits a false sense of security of what it's like to hang out with a pitmaster, because they're not all like you, Ray. You share everything with everybody.
Well, it was a career move, frankly, Sam. I got to a point in my life where my family trucking business was done, and I had moved to Florida, and I had a food truck, and it wasn't going very well. But what I was like already a pretty big deal in the barbecue world, and I decided to start teaching classes. I was the first guy that was actively still winning and teaching classes over here. Now everybody does it. We didn't get as much money back then either, but then I got an opportunity to write a cookbook. So I kind of had a come to Jesus meeting with myself, like, okay, if I'm going to do all this stuff, I actually have to give up the secrets, because it's not fair to tell someone to come to my competition class and not tell them the real thing. And same with the cookbook. I was like, all these recipes I've been saving, I got to write them down now, because that's only the fair way to do it. So it wasn't all that noble of me. It was really more, I needed the money.
And Ray, for the people in the UK that don't know about competition barbecue, how would you describe it to the people in the UK?
Well, an obsession for sure. It's evolved a lot, though. So again, they really didn't even exist 40 years ago. So I was there at the beginning of it. Back in the beginning, we were the test pilots. We were trying different things. We had the ideas, okay, how do we manipulate those judges? Now everybody does that. The whole game is now to manipulate the judges. In the beginning, we would show up with a cooler of beer and a cooler of meat, and drink the cooler of beer, cook the meat, and whoever's was the best was won that day, and you go home. It evolved into this obsessed thing. I call the modern day guys technicians, because they're not, creativity is not their strong suit. They learn from each other. They all buy all the rubs. They buy all the injections and sauces, and they're technicians. They can do it perfectly every time. It kind of bores me, frankly. I enjoyed the days of experimenting, and we always used to say, we'll tell you 80% of what we're doing, and the other 20% is on your own. And that was probably what varied. The rest of us all did the same thing up to a certain point. But the barbecue sauce that's on the table at my restaurant, called Ray's OG, I made it at home for years and won a bunch of contests with it for years. You can't do that anymore. Everybody there's a certain taste that's got to happen. So, but they're all still out there having a lot of fun, and God bless them. They sure got nicer equipment than we did in the early days. And pretty proud to have been one of the pioneers.
And some big prize money for those barbecue competitions over there.
It's funny. We had a bump there for a while where there was a couple that the prize pool was $100,000, and it's backed off of that now. We've sort of, not even just the last year. I think they found that there was no real need for it. The guys would show up anyway.
Yeah.
And didn't need to put up that much prize money. But let's talk about the evolution of competition in the UK. The original grill stock, it was insane. One of the entries, a chicken entry, you could do whatever you wanted, was a chicken riding a motorcycle. It was like a built a metal motorcycle, and there was a chicken riding it. That was his entry. There was at one point, there was for the pork entry, there was a gigantic pork pie castle, like this high. Pork pies. And so by the end of Grill Stock, or certainly halfway even, the entries were identical to what we would see here in the US. And
Wow.
Some of the teams have gone back and forth and had good success. That wouldn't have happened at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the incredible thing. I mean, barbecue in the UK, okay, so first of all, most people think of it as just grilling. But I think we've really embraced this idea that our barbecue, certainly if it's got a lid, is more than that. And, and because we have so much European influence here as well, the idea of cooking some more interesting cuts and marinades and grilling hasn't been a huge leap for us. So Ray, have you seen a lot of, I suppose, development in terms of creativity and advanced skills over the years, since you've been coming back and forth to the UK? I mean, are we getting better at barbecue, I guess is my question.
Yes, you're definitely getting better at barbecue. Creativity, much like I just described over here, has gone the other way. What you're doing, instead of taking those British cuts and whatever, one of the things that always bothers me and still does, your cuisine in general is not sweet like ours. Putting sweet sauce on meat seems ridiculous to a Brit. And I thought that it would evolve into this UK style that used more tart kind of things. It didn't go right to those sweet sauces. And I was completely wrong, because the barbecue sauces over there, everybody's importing our barbecue sauces. I really thought there would be an opportunity for something that really kind of threaded the needle, showed American barbecue, but really was more what you like to eat. But that hasn't been the case. It's been the exact opposite. Everyone has swung over to just falling into that trap of sweet American barbecue, which is okay with me. I'm not mad about that, but I think it's come a long way for sure. Think about the restaurants there. You guys, could you have opened that restaurant 12 years ago? Would anybody even understood what you were trying to do? And so many of the other ones around the country, what was there when I keep referencing Grill Stock because it's the beginning. In my mind, I don't know if there was a beginning before that. It sure didn't look like it. It was definitely, and so Texas Joe, he was around, I think, right?
Yeah.
Pit Q, have you been to Pit Q in London?
I never have. No, Neil, who was involved in the beginning, is a good friend of mine, but I never made it there. But they had just started. I mean, it was in its infancy, and now they're everywhere.
So Ray, for the people that are tuning in with their Abergavenny festival tickets, could you describe to people the difference between grilling and smoking?
Sure. I mean, they're very close cousins. It involves fire and meat, and really both of them. Every culture has grilling. What could have possibly come first in our whole existence before a piece of meat and some fire? Nobody had made a pan before they cooked that first piece of meat. Nothing can come before grilling. And then everybody, holes in the ground and vessels that are covered, and smoking meat has been as a preservative method, but every culture has had these two things, and they're clearly close cousins. But now we've evolved it so much, and we overanalyze everything now. So smoking is over here and grilling is over here, and I'm fine with that, because it certainly is a thing. So grilling is when we take meat, we put it directly over the fire, a hamburger, a sausage, a flat piece of chicken, maybe a pork chop, and you cook it pretty quickly. Smoking is over here, where we keep the temperature way down. There's definitely more wood involved, and we keep a covered vessel, and we cook it for a long, long time. It was early done for preserving, but now it's really akin to sous vide almost. That's something that a lot of chefs can understand when they can't understand barbecue. Sous vide is a long, slow cooking method, and barbecue in slow smoking is the same way.
And one of the things that I really fell in love with when we did our big road trip around America, obviously there's lots of state variations of barbecue, and depending on whether you're in Texas or Florida or North Carolina. And I just wondered what you thought about, because quite often it's the use of cheap cuts of meat.
That's the origin. That's where we say barbecue begins. And there's a lot of conversation over here these days about the slaves and the early. So much of it was developed by the slaves and black guys, because we take the hog. We wanted the valuable parts in back then was the loin and maybe the ham. Nobody wanted the shoulder and the ribs and the belly, and it was all kind of fatty and gristly.
That's where we get that phrase, eating high off the hog. Isn't that right, Ray? So you would, the high off the hog would be for people to eat all those fancier cuts.
Yep. So barbecuers had access to the cheaper cuts, and they learned how to cook them. I mean, there's no question that that's what it is. Brisket's the same way. Brisket's a horrible piece of meat till you get it right. You know, it's just not that good. It's pretty hard to cook, but once you get it cooked right, it's great. So it's absolutely those cheaper cuts of meat, and we learned to slow cook them and render the fat out and make the tough pieces tender. And what happened was it got to tasting better than those high on the hog parts that we cooked real quick. And that's really what got us all here.
I 100% agree with that. You know, give me a pork shoulder over a pork loin any day. I think it's that amazing fat that keeps it all really good and tasty, isn't it?
I'm going to ask you a controversial question now. What is the best state variation of barbecue as far as you're concerned?
Okay, we won't show this bit, Ray. This is just between us.
Oh, okay. I'm a little, partial. I'm partial to Florida these days, but it's not the right answer. First, you have to accept the fact that when you are in Texas, you know how big Texas is. Everybody doesn't cook the same. And as soon as you cross over the line into Oklahoma, nobody talks about Oklahoma. So don't they have barbecue there? So to me, it's not quite the way everybody perceives it. Unfortunately, you guys, you got to come and visit it, but a lot of your friends and listeners don't ever get to come here. So they have to count on what we tell them, and they just hear about Texas. And not that Texas isn't good. Texas would probably, if I had one place I could go eat, it would probably be Texas. But it's funny you brought up Aaron Franklin, and I was just in Austin. I was actually in Dallas, but we were talking about Austin. I was with Daniel Vaughn. 10 years ago, Aaron Franklin's restaurant did not exist. I wrote a book called Barbecue Road Trip 15 years ago. I was like the first guy that did that. And in Austin, Franklin wasn't there, Lewis wasn't there, La Barbecue wasn't there, Valentina's wasn't there. All the famous ones now were not there. There was hardly any barbecue in Austin. You had to drive down to Lockhart, where the 100-year-old restaurants are. And that's, for me, that's where I would take you. I would go right to Lockhart, and there's 3 restaurants there that are getting on 100 years old. These family feuds, because the one brother owned the business and the sister owned the building, and just epic historic stuff. There's no place better than that.
Well, one of the things that we noticed when we were on our road trip around America is how few female barbecue chefs there are. And very much still in the UK, barbecue is a very male-dominated pursuit. Have you seen that change over the years?
I have, for sure. It's one of them things. It's barbecue. You're going to get dirty. You guys know you're going to carry around heavy boxes of stuff. It's not that fun. It's fun when you're posing next to the pit like this.
Yeah, it's not very glamorous either.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of getting dirty and hard work, and before you got to take that picture. So it became a guy thing, no doubt. And guys, this is what hooked me. I went to this festival, and I knew how to cook, but I wasn't a barbecue guy. I literally borrowed a Weber kettle, and all of a sudden there was giant piles of wood and fire and big pieces of meat and beer, and we stayed up all night, and my buddy had to build me a smoker. This was guy stuff for sure, but we've definitely seen the evolution. There's always been some girls in my book that's 15 years old. I'm not trying to plug it. I don't know if you can even get it. But I wrote about the Jones sisters in Kansas City. They had
yeah.
Barbecue restaurant. Now they're very famous, but this was 15 years ago. They weren't that famous, and that place went away, and they had a couple other incarnations, and they're on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy now. I've heard. I haven't had
Yeah, we saw that. Absolutely legendary. Where they, they had a little makeover. But then we've got, I mean, one of our inspirations was of course Miss Tootsie from Snow's Barbecue. I mean, like, talk about a living legend, and she's just incredible at what she does. But you're right. I mean, I think you need to embrace probably your inner utilitarian work person to do anything with barbecue. It's hot, it's heavy, it's unglamorous, and it's pretty grubby. So I think I can see why guys would like it, but we've also got legends like Leanne Whippen. I see you with Leanne. So there are women coming through, and I think for us as barbecuers, grillers, smokers, and all of that, we're always trying to encourage women to take it up as well.
Well, in the old days, we would have called that sort of a tomboy thing. And,
sure.
I know you girls. I consider you're kind of tomboys.
Yeah. I'll wear that badge with pride. That's fine.
Not a bad thing at all. Leanne is a dear friend of mine. Absolutely a tomboy. I got to spend the weekend with her last week in Dallas. Leanne is the best. And Tootsie, I had the honor of introducing Tootsie to be inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
Before, but so with the way they do it, if you guys ever get over for the American Royal again, I'll certainly give you an invite. They have a party for us before the award. So anyone that's been inducted into the Hall of Fame can come and bring a couple friends, and they have a separate party for us. So it's like, you always see a picture come out of it. It's epic. It's so fun. And I wish more would come. But Tootsie was there, and I hadn't met her before, and she's absolutely a tomboy. She's like 80 some years old. She still works at the high school or the grade school or whatever. And on Friday night, she goes there and cooks the barbecue overnight, and she's 80 some years old. Absolutely a tomboy. We got to come up with a new word that says tomboy.
I was just thinking about this Barbecue Hall of Fame. Barbecue is so important in America. It's right up there with the blues
and the rock and roll. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So what did that feel like, being inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
Well, we consider barbecue to be our original cuisine. Everything else we eat over here came from somewhere else. A lot of it came from Europe. Barbecue is the one that we hold to our, that's ours. So we take great pride in it, much like the blues and rock and roll, no doubt. Being inducted in the Hall of Fame is really, what an honor. You look back at all the stuff you did, and you wonder sometimes if anybody was paying attention, and then you get a trophy like that one day, and you're thinking, oh, somebody was paying attention. That's pretty nice. And I've actually had the pleasure, the honor of sort of being involved with it since then. I'm the only Hall of Fame member that's on the nominating committee now. So we nominate 9 people. We take this big list of everybody's everybody's nominations and turn it into a list of 9. And then I also get to vote for 3. So I've been very involved with it from the beginning. The biggest mistake we made was we started way too late. There's so many people that deserve to get into the Barbecue Hall of Fame that it's a log jam, and we can't just induct everybody. For one, it's an expense thing because they give them a little travel money, and they buy them a fancy trophy, and then next year we have to continue to list. So but it's also it wouldn't be right either to those 3 people. This year we've got 2 classes that are going to both be there at the same time. That's 6 people. That's enough. They got to get their moment. But there's so many people. I think about the UK and all over Europe. There's a handful of people over there that should start really getting consideration. But unfortunately, it's going to probably be a while. You're 2 of them, but.
We need spot number 9 and 10 to open up for us, right?
It's going to take time to get everybody in. One of the things we did last year was, this committee is really functional. It's really pretty cool. I really enjoy the meeting. It's a grueling 2-hour meeting, but everybody is respectful. It's a room full of barbecue nerds. So I'm sitting there with like 8 people. I'm telling you, you mentioned Tootsie, and they all know her. I mean, you mentioned lady in West Tennessee, Helen Brown, I think it was. I had not heard of her, and I'm pretty into it. And it's really a fun thing with all these guys. But again, there's still Leanne's a perfect example. Leanne's been on the ballot 2 years in a row and hasn't gotten inducted yet. Well, how do you get her ahead of Arthur Bryant? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But is Melissa Cookston? Melissa Cookston is inducted into the Hall of Fame, isn't she, as well?
yeah,
So,
sure. We definitely shouldn't not talk about Melissa when we talk about Lady Pitmasters.
of
She's
course.
the best and absolutely a tomboy.
Or as what we like to call ourselves, pit mistresses. I think your wife Sandy particularly likes that term, pit mistress. I'm just looking at the. Are you in the restaurant at the minute, Ray?
No,
It's a Zoom background.
Oh, it's a Zoom background because I can see lovely rubs and sauces and wood. Nice wood pile there.
Which side is it on? The other side. Yeah, that's the restaurant. That's the wood pile inside the restaurant. That behind me is like the place. I have this giant chair that blocks it all. But behind me is like where they keep all the sauces and stuff and tables. And yeah, this is just, I got a bunch of different shots of it, but that's one of them.
Because I wanted to talk about wood because wood is so important. When you talk about barbecue, the different types of wood impart different types of flavor. So do you use different woods for different meats?
Well, yes. No, we don't at the restaurant. At home, I do. So the reason, you know why they cook a bunch of hogs over hickory wood in North Carolina?
Because they have hickory wood.
Hickory wood. In Texas, we talk about mesquite, but most guys in Texas are cooking over post oak because they have now they found the local wood that tasted the best, and burned the best and dried the best and was available. And same thing at the restaurant. We at home, I really like to cook with cherry. And so out of the red woods here, cherry and apple are the lighter woods. Hickory and oak are the stronger woods, and pecan to me is somewhere in the middle. I've often used a combination. In my competition days, it would be hickory and cherry was what I always really like to use that one, because hickory's got that classic barbecue flavor. But if you use too much hickory, it really can. Over smoking is a big mistake. And I'm sure all these new barbecue guys in the UK are over smoking stuff regularly. Because guys, if something gets smoked and it tastes good, well, more smoke would obviously be better, but it doesn't really work that way. So I like apple and cherry because they are lighter. It's a little harder to over smoke. But for the restaurant, it was going to cost us twice as much. And we go through 3-4 pallets of wood a week. It was going to cost us twice as much to have pecan versus oak. Oak was available to us. So that was the obvious choice. And we cook fine with it. The food's great. Someday you'll come visit me, but use what's available. If you had a big selection, great. If not, use what's available. It's just got to be hardwood and it's got to be well aged.
And I think you're right. And I think for us, when we barbecue at home, I think because we spend so much time cooking in the restaurant, we use a lot of oak. We do have some hickory in there too. I mean, that's quite a punchy flavor. But for when we cook at home, we definitely veer towards the lighter woods. I'm wondering if that's something to do with us all maybe spending quite a lot of time at the smoker. And maybe we don't need that big punch of flavor, but we want that flavor profile from what we're cooking.
I think so. I'm the same way. I'll generally, because I usually cook in a ceramic cooker with lump charcoal, I'll often just skip the wood because I get enough flavor out of that charcoal. But you're right. The guests want more wood than I think we do. I think we're just tired of it.
And obviously we're big meatheads. We love meat. We love a pork shoulder. We love brisket. We love wings. But I'm gonna say the dirty word to you now, Ray. Vegetables. How do you feel about vegetables on a barbecue?
Man, talk about wrecking, put a damper on the conversation. How can you have an exciting, invigorating conversation about
vegetables?
Somebody has to bring up the V word.
Because one of the things, obviously, we've got our own TV show that Sam and Shauna's Big Cookout, and what we always tried to do in the show was, whilst meat might be the star of the show in the center of it, what I love is all of the lovely accompaniments and all of the lovely dishes that go with the meat.
No, I joke about it, but I really am not that way. I'm in a, excuse me, over here in St. Pete. It's a very hip kind of town. We got a whole bunch of, there's a vegan restaurant right down the block from us. I actually went there and they were rude to me. Cuisine, but I didn't look.
Did you turn up with your own meat though?
No, I was there to eat their stuff, but they didn't believe it. I think I didn't look like their usual customers. But anyway, And the other thing is, I used to work. Remember, I worked for Southern Hospitality, a restaurant in New York. It closed last year, but they had a nice run. It was owned by Justin Timberlake. But
Yeah.
one of the things I learned there was New Yorkers eat very different than where I come from. There's all kinds of people that they're not necessarily vegans or vegetarians. They just eat. There's a lot of things they don't eat. They're just a lot more picky. And I learned a lesson. It's not funny. We're running a restaurant here. It's our job to feed everybody and feed them well. And that's the approach we have here. We actually, so we knew we needed vegan and vegetarian menu items, a lot of them. And so the attitude was, let's make really kick-ass menu items that happen to be vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So we kind of sneak them in on you. But I'm happy to make them and sell them.
But I think that's our attitude as well. I mean, I think if you enjoy cooking and you enjoy food, you know, I think the wider palette and breadth and depth you can do, the better, you know. And we're the same. We don't necessarily produce dishes for the sake of producing dishes. Those vegan and vegetarian dishes have to stand up with the best of our barbecue, you know. So when people come and dine, everybody has a great time, you know.
Well,
so everything is tasty.
And you're right, Ray, because the way I always felt about barbecue is it's very inclusive, and I always thought it's like the people's food. And if you've got a restaurant, you've got to have something for everyone.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's our real job, is feeding people, you know, and feeding them well and making them like it. That's what we're really about.
And making people happy through food.
So if they don't feel the same way about what they want as we do, we had actually had opposite problems like that. One of the things, so we didn't have mac and cheese, regular mac and cheese in the beginning. We made did you know what hominy is?
Yeah.
Yes, of
Love
course.
that.
Yeah.
We took hominy and we drained it, washed it, and made a spicy cheese sauce, a queso, and put it in there. And then we topped it with flaming hot Cheetos. You get those like the blazing hot ones. And
I could literally eat that right now.
it was great. It was really, because the hominy would hold, you didn't really get much flavor from it. It was mostly the cheese sauce that you tasted, but it stayed nice and firm, as like pasta does not. And it really was a great dish, and people liked it. But every single day, someone would complain to me that we didn't have regular mac and cheese. So sure enough, we put regular mac and cheese on the menu, and this dish went away. Nobody would buy it anymore because they all just wanted the regular mac and cheese. And that disappoints me. But again, you've got to do what you've got to do. We didn't have collard greens in the beginning either. We had a nice Brussels sprout dish, and we have this cauliflower and broccolini cross. It's really cool looking. Two nice green dishes that were available, but they wanted greens. They wanted collard greens. So
you know, we've been trying to get collard greens on our menu for 7 years. We can't find a supplier in the UK that produces enough of them. What exactly are collard greens?
Well, it's kind of some kind of lettuce or kale or something like that.
You guys cook them in pork fat, don't you? Is it pork and ham, isn't there? There's got to be a really lovely porky hammy flavor.
The actual spin that you'll see sometimes is smoked turkey leg. Like they'll throw a smoked turkey leg in there.
Lovely.
Unctuous turkey fat. But yeah, typically a pork hock, like a smoked pork hock. At the restaurant, we just throw some of the pulled pork in because we have it everywhere. So we're able to buy it. Collard greens are big leafy things. Like I said, it's like, I think it's cousin of kale, or what's that stuff that comes in different colors? Chard.
Chard. Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, let's move on from vegetables. Let's move on to desserts. What's your favorite barbecue dessert?
I had a piece of banana, a nice cup of banana pudding the other day at the restaurant.
One of my favorites.
And it's as standard and basic as it could be. It's some bananas, some vanilla wafers. I don't know if you got those or what you call them. And some banana or vanilla, even vanilla pudding and whipped cream. It's all you need. But our number one dessert at the restaurant is a peanut butter pie, but it's not a traditional peanut butter pie. So it has like an Oreo cookie crust, and then it has, I don't know who made this recipe, but in it is sweetened condensed milk, cream cheese, Heath bar crunchy pieces, chocolate chips, banana chips, whipped cream, like every gooey dessert ingredient.
Wow.
Right, I've just put on 3 pounds from you just talking. that literally made my shirt tight.
Well, you see, now you got to come visit me someday.
Yeah, we do.
Ray, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. I'm sure the Abergavenny Food Festival would love you to come one year. In fact, let's do that. The three of us will do a three-way demo at Abergavenny next year. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, you bring the banana pudding though, Ray. About
I will. You know where to find me. I would love to. I'm festival-less in the UK. I bounced around. We were at Black Deer Fest for a couple of years, and because of COVID and this, I have lost my place at a festival in the UK. So I'm available, and I would love that.
Well, you'll always have a place in our hearts, Ray. And listen, you have to come back over the UK. There's a big Dr. Ray barbecue lamp hole in our worlds right now, and it needs to be filled. You need to come back over. But listen, thank you for talking to us.